Hey guys, it's me, the real Kingfisher. Lately, I've been doing a lot of thinking, and in this video, I'd like to bring some attention to how terrible the Ostroraptor and Baryonyx designs are in the Isle. Not just that, but I'd also like to discuss why Pounce to Pin for Omniraptor isn't broken and is actually incredibly fair, while briefly touching upon why it's a good thing that Pteranodon is going to be more terrestrial than it is currently. All this and more on today's episode of... Dear God, are you guys okay? That skinwalker has been impersonating me for months now. It stole my YouTube password. It made these ridiculous claims to try and make me look like a stupid dumb idiot. Like that Astrobot didn't deserve Game of the Year or country music isn't good. What did he say to you guys? Oh God. Oh Lord, terrestrial. Truly an irredeemable monster. But now that that's taken care of, I'd like to move on to more important matters. For far too long, a particular group of dinosaurs has been quite literally overshadowed by the rest of the giants on the roster. The small tiers, but more specifically, the tiny tiers. Pretty much anything below the 200 kilogram threshold. Creatures like Dryosaurus and Troodon are often shrugged off by many of the slovenly goblins in this community due to being seen as not worth playing. Part of this, unsurprisingly, is due to how some of these animals are just straight up not feature complete. Where is burrowing Dondi? I've been waiting years for this Dondi. I'm gonna burrow myself. While this is an important factor to consider when discussing playability, it's not what I'd like to address today. The talking point I have a problem with is how these vertically challenged animals are often considered inferior parts of the ecosystem. In fact, I frequently see them equated to the larger dinosaurs in the form of reductive statements such as Ostroraptor will be able to do everything Baby can do, but better. Why would I ever play the latter when the former exists? Congratulations, you have given me... That's stupid. And yeah, if one has the mindset that the smaller side of the roster is simply a worse version of their larger contemporary, then of course they will be seen as lesser, translating into a lower player count. So what if I told you that it doesn't need to be this way? Today, I'd like to talk about how to make these little critters the very foundation of the Isle's virtual ecology by giving them the ability to literally change the world around them by simply existing and going on about their lives. Essentially, the byproduct of their presence on a server would make the game feel much more dynamic while providing the playables and by proxy the player a higher sense of importance by being able to manipulate the entire ecosystem in ways the larger animals simply could not. But how? I hear you shout from your subterranean lair. Myself and two of the members in my Discord server spent an entire day aggressively think-tanking ways on exactly how tiny tiers can affect their environment, and I'll be sharing those very examples with you today by going over 6 distinct playables: Protoceratops, Oviraptor, Homalocephaly, Dryosaurus, Minmi, and Hypsilophodon. And the best part is, none of these abilities, with the exception of possibly one, will require the addition of any complicated or contrived mechanics. They should all be very simple to implement and should always be a corollary effect of their natural behavior rather than something a player can abuse or directly exploit. Before I begin, I'd like to specify that this is simply a discussion on some ideas that I personally have to make the game better. Nothing I present in this video is confirmed unless I explicitly state that it is. We're just here to have a good time and talk about our favorite dinosaur game. I know it's repetitive for me to say this in literally every video, but there is such an oversaturated black market of misinformation that exists in this community that I really do not want to contribute to. So without further ado, let's get it. I just know Orny is foaming at the mouth right now. A few devlogs ago, the developers graced us with the beautiful golden nugget of knowledge that nesting grounds will soon be making their way into Gateway. I said the same word twice, fuck me. Presumably and hopefully before the addition of the titular egg thief, Oviraptor. So it got us thinking. Ovi, in all its confusingly adorable glory, is slated to be an omnivore, meaning it should, in theory, be able to consume small AI creatures such as the currently implemented compies and pterodactyls, as well as the soon-to-be added rats, lizards, and grasshoppers, and all that other cute stuff. So what if, when herbivores create nests on said nesting grounds, these AI were to spawn and attempt to either eat the player's eggs or destroy the nest itself? Now, any regular old herbivore who hates their children could just try and kill these pests manually, but it would require sticking to the nest far more often than necessary, which is frankly just annoying. But if you're a big brain herbivore, you could hire an Oviraptor to patrol the area around your nest and take care of the AI for you in exchange for the occasional egg. A symbiotic relationship in which one animal receives protection of their young while the other receives a very nutritious meal in exchange for their services. It's important to mention that not every oviraptor will be encouraged or forced to behave like this in this hypothetical. Player agency still plays a part in whether they would like to actually help the herbivores or continue to play offensively and stay true to the dubious role of egg thief. And of course, there's the possibility of the herbivore not trusting the oviraptor for fear of betrayal. Maybe a herbivore doesn't want to give its egg, but the oviraptor still wants to help anyway out of the goodness of its heart. Who knows? That's the fun of the mechanic, if you can even call it that. It's more of just a personal choice, but what matters most in this scenario is that the choice is possible. Now, I'll admit that this one is not as cool as the other tiny tiers, in my opinion, but we believe that it fosters a unique relationship between these species, and would encourage some herbivores to have flocks of ovies patrolling the nesting ground in search of possible threats, boosting their value in the ecosystem. Not to mention, and this is the best part of the gimmick, it would not require the addition of any complex system whatsoever. The reason I say this is because for a short time on Spiro, compies would spawn near nests to try and destroy it, which means that such a feature was originally intended to be implemented anyway. Here's a short reenactment of how it worked. But seriously, if they can reintroduce this AI attacking the nest feature, Oviraptor could potentially become the Isle's premier businessman. And I'll be honest, that's very funny to me. Moving on to the next dinosaur, we have... This one is probably the simplest of the bunch, even more so than Oviraptor, because the concept itself is pretty straight, unlike you. Homalocephale is going to be one of, if not the most inconsequential dinosaur on the roster once it's added. It will almost definitely be less than 50 kilograms and will be the smallest playable, second only to Hypsilophodon. So how does one get this little caricature of literally every bald dude that has ever existed ever to matter? By making it a pollinator. If a group of homolos is feeding within a certain area, going from one plant to the next, it'll trigger a response in which plant spawn rates are increased in that area for a specific window of time. Nothing egregious like a 100% increase, no, that's ridiculous. Simply enough so that it matters to the larger herbivores. This way, this tiny pachycephalosaur is directly beneficial for the larger plant eaters to have in and around their herds, subsequently providing protection to the homolo. This pollination effect could not be stacked and would only occur once a particular amount of homolos are present and grouped up, as one or two individuals would realistically not have much of an effect on even a fraction of a territory like the river delta, for instance. While obviously not being a necessary factor for food to spawn, the presence of this little dinosaur would only be a net positive for whatever is around it, and would provide the homolo player with a higher sense of impact on their environment. Which, again, is something that I consider important in this kind of game so as to avoid only fleshing out ecological impact for the animals at the very top of the food chain.
Did somebody say top?
What?
With me on top, yeah, I'm superior. You ain't got shit, you're inferior.
Minmi's segment is honestly very similar to that of Homolo, only in a completely separate medium and with a slightly different form of execution. According to this concept art, Minmi will presumably be able to sift through the sand beds of rivers and lakes to dig up underwater plants, similar to how Bapiasaurus currently forages for small AI. This obviously isn't confirmed, but I'm going based off of the concept art, which is the crutch of this whole segment. Our idea is to have Minmi not only dig up its own food while grazing, but also disturb the occasional crab and bottom-feeding school of catfish to have them spawn in its vicinity. As a reaction, elite fish, bullfrogs, and other AI would have a temporarily increased spawn time in the area, leading to the presence of Bapiasaurus, Austroraptors, and even animals as large as Baryonyx and Suchomimus. Minmi would essentially become a literal farmer, a la Vinland Saga, also known as one of the best anime and manga of all time. Yes, you can quote me on that, you bitch. By causing a chain reaction that works its way up the entire aquatic ecosystem. Even animals like the mighty Dinosaurus could possibly benefit from leftover roots and seaweed the ankylosaur would unearth, leading to yet another symbiotic relationship in which the Chirus could theoretically keep Minmi as a pet and protect it in exchange for food that it may not be able to reach on its own. Once again, the only work the devs would theoretically have to do would be to tweak the spawn of AI if a Minmi has been grazing in an area for a specific amount of time. Obviously, I'm not saying that it's as simple as pressing a few buttons. I'm sure there's a whole process behind it, but what I'm trying to say is that it isn't a completely separate and foreign system. What's next on the list? Oh yeah, Dryo. I almost forgot. Dryosaurus is an interesting one because Even with burrowing, it would still need something to spice things up a bit in terms of uniqueness, as many other animals will have the ability to burrow anyway. First off, make Dryo an omnivore, but not just any omnivore, an insectivore. Grasshoppers, dragonflies, and other insects would all be on the menu in addition to fruits and other shrubs. Secondly, give it small spurs on either its feet or its arms. Why? To be able to break into termite mounds that will be found in open fields and nesting grounds. Bars. Holy fuck, I'm a rapper. Dryo will be the only animal capable of chipping away at these tough arthropod housing castles, which, after broken into, would be able to be consumed by other omnivores in the area. Avaceratops, Oviraptor, there it is again, Bapiosaurus, juvenile carnivores, and even some herbivores as a nutritional supplement could all use these insects as a source of energy, granted to them by the mythical Dryosaurus. The mounds would stay open, quote unquote, meaning animals could eat from them for about 30 real-life minutes before closing up and replenishing. Unless you've been living under the decaying body of an eldritch horror for the past couple months, then you know the developers have mentioned giving Hypsilophodon the ability to climb, much like Herrerasaurus, the funnest in-game playable. For Hypsi, we had to get a little more creative. Initially, we figured that an animal with its soon-to-be arboreal lifestyle would be enough, until we realized that it had the potential to allow for something really cool. With Hypsies bounding around in the treetops, there's sure to be much more activity up there, which, in theory, would cause debris and branches to fall down. What if, as Hypsies traverse the canopy of the forest, it has a chance at dropping reinforced nesting material, which, when used to build nests, decreases the speed at which the temperature lowers during incubation, making sitting on the nest less of an urgent responsibility for any creatures using said material. This would, in turn, make the nesting process much less annoying and more efficient. Granted, this would be an uncommon occurrence. The material would pretty much only spawn in jungle areas sparse and thick alike, where Hypsies have traveled through the trees, and would despawn after some time if nobody picks it up. Very simple. Unlike our next entry. By the way, when I mean simple, I'm not trying to degrade or downplay the difficulty of game development. If you're a developer and you're watching this, please feel free to berate me in the comments about the specifics of implementing these mechanics. The last thing I want to do is make your work seem easy when I know it's the complete opposite, especially for a game as high quality as this. We're not talking about Path of Titans here. Anyway, now for our last dinosaur. This final entry is probably the most complicated of the bunch, as it relies almost entirely on the drought system that has been mentioned several times throughout the development of Evrima. Protoceratops, as per the concept art, appears to be a beach dweller, naturally having reticulated kidneys that allow for the filtration of salt water. Assuming this will actually happen in-game, we propose that Protoceratops will be able to dig moats around the burrows it makes on the shoreline and be able to fit it with a specific kind of jagged rock that would inflict damage upon large predators trying to encroach on its home. Stay with me now. Once the burrow is left unattended, it and the moat will begin to fill up with water and spawn marine AI, such as clams, crabs, starfish, and even smaller fish. This moat would effectively turn into a tide pool, serving as a source of food for juveniles that stick to the shorelines of Gateway. And if the moat section is absolutely impossible to implement or it's way too difficult, then honestly just have the abandoned burrows fill up and turn into said tide pools with the same function. Apart from once again being a byproduct of the existence of this animal, it would just be really fucking cool. It would breathe much needed life into the beach habitat and make it much more accessible to animals of certain species to settle down instead of having to move inland for food. And I believe that about does it. And I know what you're wondering. Where are Troodon and Bapiosaurus? If I didn't include them in today's showcase, it's because I believe these creatures are unique enough on their own already, or will serve a greater purpose once the roster has been better assembled. Or we just couldn't come up with anything good for them. In a simulation game like The Isle, where the intent is to create a player-driven ecosystem, it is imperative that its playables are all given a sense of importance in regards to having a legitimate effect on their environment, regardless of their size or stature. I believe that the concepts we've come up with not only stay in line with the fictionalized science within The Isle and its game design, but would finally destroy the idiotic racism that exists against small tiers. And you know what? Sometimes destroying racism is enough. And speaking of racism, that's right, we held our very own skin contest in our Discord server. Not judging human color, but instead judging the skin submissions of anybody who would participate. So I wanted to take a moment to give a shout out to Serato for submitting his Myosaurus skin and winning the democratic process. Congrats, dude. Great job. I'll be having a lot more of these skin contests pretty often, actually. This was a lot of fun. So if you want to participate in that, then feel free to join the Discord server. I'll have a link down in the comments. I also wanted to shout out Lupinus for her incredible fan art of both myself myself and Orny, thank you so much for making this again. I still can't believe how incredible it came out. Thank you so much. And oh boy, it sure has been a minute since I've uploaded, huh? Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to anybody currently watching right now. If you weren't able to succeed with what you wanted in 2024, then I'm sure you will in 2025. I wish you all the very best in the coming year, and I promise that I will try to post more consistently. That's my New Year's resolution, guys, is to hit 10K before the summer arrives. I know I originally said that I wanted it to be December, but that's not gonna happen. So once I hit 10K, I will strap a GoPro to my chest and go out into the Everglades to do a Q&A while I fish. I'm so serious. So if you want to see that, subscribe, like, share the video, do all you can, and thank you for watching. Bye-bye.